Report Writing, Part 2. Law number 1. The reader is the most important person. The reader is the most important person to consider before, during, and after completing your report. At the same time, some reports have to be written for varied readership. For instance, technical managers and financial managers writing two separate reports would be time-consuming and politically dangerous. Directors, for example, might feel offended if they did not receive both versions. Strategic use of appendices and summaries can produce a partial answer to this problem. It must, however, be identified as a possible area of difficulty before the writing starts. The identity of the reader will determine not only the approach, but also the technical level and style of the writing. By using two different summaries, maybe an executive summary and a technical summary, you can avoid the confusion that may exist in trying to combine both into one writing style. A short email report to a colleague will be less formal than a report to the managing director of another company, and considerations of tact in what can be safely included and of presentation and layout will of course be less important. A balance must be maintained between the formality and informality of friendly writing and the formality due to any business communication. Diagrammatic material must be clearly produced even if the drawing is informal in style. The objectives of a report, then, are found in matching the reader's need, the information involved, and the appropriate tone, with the clearly defined limits of the report specification. So that's the reader's need, the information involved, the right tone, and the limits of the report spec. When the objectives are identified and clarified in this way, the actual writing of the report will become much easier. 2. The format of the report. When the objectives of the report are firmly established, the material must be collected. Indeed, some of it will probably be already available. Decisions about organising the information can begin now, even if they are only provisional. Report writers often worry that nothing can be done until everything is assembled, and are then appalled at the amount of organisation needed, usually with a very strict time limit. As material arrives, it should be put into one of three categories. 1. Obviously important information, which must go into the report because it is completely relevant to the objectives. 2. Borderline information, which might be useful to some readers, or which might amplify or substantiate other more important material. And 3. Information which is interesting or not to the writer, but which is not truly relevant to the objectives of the report. At this stage, it is obviously dangerous to jettison any Category 3 information, but it should be set aside to be checked through later. Material in Consequences 1 and 2 must be kept available, but thought of as probably main text, Category 1, and appendix material, Category 2. There must be flexibility between these two sections, and details may move about for some time before finding an eventual resting place. Nevertheless, information which is main text is now being identified and can be examined to see what logical order might be appropriate. There has been a trend in recent years to keep the main body or main text of a report as light and as clear as possible, even if it means having a larger or more detailed appendices in the report. Keeping readers on a need-to-know basis in the main body will make sure your report is read quicker and more accurately than if you have a larger section. So Category 2 could be thought of as appendix material and Category 1 as main body material. Part 3. In the first law. Beginning and ending. It seems obvious that every report has a beginning and an end, but the choice of these limits should be a conscious decision rather than a mere accident. The beginning of a report is not usually the beginning of the work. There will have been meetings, letters, conversations, lab work, and possibly some previous reports. This report is built on foundations, which may have been laid weeks or months, even years earlier. The choice of a starting point will be decided largely by the objectives, and so ultimately once more by the reader. Questions will have to be answered. Questions such as, what does the reader already know? How much background to this project or report will the reader need in order to understand the argument of the report? And has the reader been closely involved with this or similar work before? Obviously, if the answer to the third question is yes, then less background information will be needed, and the scene can be set briefly and easily. If the answer to the first question is not much, then more background will be needed, and the appendix material file will probably grow. If the answer is, as often happens, some readers will know a great deal and others very little, then drastic reorganization may be needed to put more information into the appendices and to give more detail in the text. However, it is always worth remembering that reports are often passed on from one reader to another, and so should not be written so specifically for a particular reader that others cannot use this information. Appendices. It may seem strange to talk about the use of appendices so near the beginning of this guide, but they can be one of the writer's most useful tools in report writing, and some of their value has already been suggested. Essentially, an appendix or appendices should be used to remove from the main text all the information which is not needed by the majority of the users or readers of the report.